Welcome to Financially Speaking with SFM. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Frank Lavalio and David Allen. They're the co-founders of Security Financial Management. Frank, how are you today?
You know, I'm doing really good, and I do want to share some great news. I had my first grandbaby, which is exciting.
Yay.
And with all the craziness going on with COVID, the silver lining is my daughter and my son-in-law lived at home with us for 6 months. So we're coming off 6 months every day. When we had our coffee in the morning, the little baby, I nicknamed her Rosie because her cheeks get red in the morning. And it was a great time. And it's sad what happened with all the COVID stuff, but the silver lining is people and families got to spend time together. So that's my news.
Oh, that is such a blessing. Well, I'm definitely going to keep your family in my prayers, and that's wonderful news. David, how are you?
Doing great, and I had an event happen in my family as well. My oldest boy, Jason, got married on Sunday.
Oh, congratulations.
So that was a big event, and we had to adjust for COVID as well. But it was a beautiful wedding. It was a great time.
Was it outside? Did you have an outdoors wedding?
Well, it was supposed to be on the beach, but what happened is the prior 8 days were beautiful, and then the day of, we had to go to Plan C, not Plan B, because it was 30-mile-an-hour wind with no beach showing. So we had to take it up.
Dave, that's the Irish luck. If you're Italian like me, they've been beautiful day. That's what happens when you're Irish.
Well, good. But I'm not Irish. But
We're making Irish today.
Yeah, I think I was German last time.
Just multifaceted.
He's a mutt. It's okay.
I love it. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And definitely want to jump right in and talk to you a little bit about, obviously, the importance of today's show, specifically talking about planning for retirement. So, Frank, let me ask you, let's talk a little bit about the history of the company, if we could.
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to. And we do that on every show because it's fun, and I try and expedite it because I get excited about talking about the history because it's really a neat story that normally doesn't happen. Well, Dave and I you can already see us joking with each other. We've known each other for over 45 years. We grew up sort of together in Melbourne, Florida. We met at a basketball camp, and we stayed really good buddies, and we were fast friends. And in college, we both went to universities in the state of Florida. We'd come home from school and say, hey, you know what, wouldn't it be fun? We're both studying finance and economics. Wouldn't it be nice to maybe start a business together? We have a passion for finance, and maybe we should start something. And most of the time, young guys talk about that, and then they go home, have a few beers, and never talk about it again, right? Well, this is a story that we actually...
But we were old enough to drink.
That's right. We were. We definitely were. Good point, Dave. But we kept with that dream, and we discussed it, and we got more and more serious, and lo and behold, almost 37 years later, we have a very strong company called Security Financial Management, and we have a passion to help a lot of people. And it's just neat when you talk about that kind of childhood buddies and then you actually execute it. It's a very rewarding experience. So every day you go to work with someone that's one of your best friends. So it's been cool, and it's been fun. It's been a heck of a journey for us. And Dave's brother Mike is on our team,
I was going to say,
who you've talked to before, and he's been with us 20 years, and we've built now 20 other advisors that are part of our firm. So it's a growing, flourishing firm that we all trust each other, and that longevity is important. So we're happy to be together and be able to keep pushing forward.
Oh, absolutely. And I just love hearing about all the people that come in to meet with you because they all say the same thing, that you're exactly the same in person as you are on television. They feel that you're just very genuine and very caring about their needs. So your dream became reality, and it's perfect. So Dave, let me ask you a question. Obviously, a lot of people in the viewing audience might be wondering this question themselves. How important is it to be working with a fiduciary when it comes to planning for retirement?
I think it's really important because a lot of people these days ask the question, are you fiduciary? Do they really know what that means?
Yeah.
Fiduciary is a word that basically means you're keeping the client's best interests number one.
Okay.
It's not about what I make. It's about, is this the best option for you? Even if we make no compensation, what's the best for you?
Sure.
Not what's best for the advisor, what's best for the client. And that client is number one, and best interest of the client always be kept number one. And if they're not, then they're not a fiduciary. If an advisor is not working on that capacity, they're not a fiduciary. And it's a very simple term, client's best interest.
Sure, sure. Well, again, it goes back to the golden rule. If you
Right.
do unto others as you would have done to yourself, then it's a good process to follow. So I'm surprised that not everyone follows that, but I'm so thankful that we talked about being a fiduciary because that is a very important component when choosing.
I'll tell you something funny about it. I have a client of mine that always asks me, and it's not, that says, "Would you do this for your mother?" And I say, "Yes, I would." Which puts me under pressure, and yes, I would do that for my mother.
And I know Mary, she's a great lady, so you want to do it right for
Yes,
her.
yes.
She'll come back and spank you today.
Right? Yeah, you might go somewhere you don't want to go. So, but that's a very important topic in today's
Absolutely.
time.
And just
It
to add to
really
that,
is.
Dave, it's a really, when you look at it, the rules there because we want to have regulation and legislation, and I think that Uncle Sam really wants to do it right. But if you're raised in a way, we all sort of, the golden rule is something that has nothing to do with fiduciary rule, but it's like, what would you do for yourself? So it's kind of like just do the right thing, and that's what I think. To oversimplify that rule, it's just do the right thing and make sure that, and also with
Absolutely.
disclosures, make sure you do the right thing, and then let the client know all the things you're going to do, and disclose the fees, and make sure it's extremely transparent. The whole key, we think, with client interaction is transparency.
Yeah.
What everybody really wants, when you think about it, is can I trust you? Is it transparent? Can I look at what I'm going to pay in fees? And so, we talk about this in other shows, but one of the things that we'll do, when we'll get to that later, but I'll jump ahead of myself because I feel like it.
As he always does.
Yeah, because if I'm not
Normally
talking,
says my part.
yeah, well, if I'm not talking, Dave's talking, so I'd rather be talking. So, just looking at fees, some people don't even know what it is that they're paying. So one of the things
True.
we do is to say, what are you really paying? Is it a commission? Is it an advisory fee? And so kind of getting all that googly gock out of it and saying, here's what it costs for you to do what you're doing. It just helps people create that transparency.
Okay. Did you say googly glock?
Googly gock, yeah. That's
love
a
that.
term.
Is
It's
that
a new
financial
word. It's
term?
not in the
That's a
dictionary,
new
by
one.
the way, but
Just created it.
yes.
Well, David, we're about ready to open up the phone lines to the viewers at home for the very first time this week. Can you tell them what they can expect to receive
Sure.
by being one of your callers?
The folks that call in during this show will receive a complimentary financial plan, and that comprehensive plan will be very appropriate for somebody that is on the cusp of retirement, maybe 3 to 5 years out. You are retired, or you have a portfolio of investable assets of $400,000 or $500,000. Those will really benefit from this complimentary analysis. We're going to look at your retirement. We will look at your investments. We're going to look at your risk level that you're taking on your portfolio. And we'll put a whole analysis together with formal action plans and recommendations. So call us. Cynthia, what's our phone number?
I will tell the viewers that in a second. Are you ready? To
We
the
are.
viewers at home, the phone lines are now open. That number to call is 877-740-6553. Again, if you have any questions about how to retire comfortably or with confidence, allow these gentlemen to design a plan for you. Let them take into account what your dreams and your goals are. And again, all you have to do is pick up the phone and call today during the show, 877-740-6553. We have to take a very short commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to have so much more. So please stay tuned.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have, by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full blown financial review today.
And welcome back to Financially Speaking with SFM. My name is Cynthia DeFazio. I'm joined today by Frank Lavalio and David Allen. They're the co-founders of Security Financial Management. Gentlemen, a wonderful show that we're having today. And Frank, I want to just dive in and ask you a question. The process of building an income plan, if you will, what does that look like? What steps do you follow?
Right. Well, yeah, it's a good question. And it's a question we get asked quite a bit when people come in, because really, if you think about what's the greatest, the greatest thing people think about that they're concerned about is running out of money, right? We all want to have this idea of retirement, which is to be able to enjoy the things that we want to do, to be able to take the time that we want, and the things that we weren't able to do maybe as often. Now we have this, hopefully, 30 years, and with longevity, maybe more, to be able to do all the things that we like. And to get there, you got to have a good income strategy. So what we do, what Dave and I do, and our partners, is we look at all the different facets of income, and it's pretty multifaceted if you think about it. You've got a lot of people accumulate wealth through a 401k.
Sure.
I think we talked about this last week, but you know, it's one of the greatest wealth building vehicles available to us because, you know, and I put my money where my mouth is. Liz and I have 4 kids and they all went to college. Thank God all graduated from college, but it's expensive as you raise a family.
Of course.
So what Liz and I would always try and do is say, okay, let's pay ourselves first. Let's get some money in the bucket so then when we help our kids finance their educations or whatever we did as a family, we would know that that would be taken care of. Because for most Americans, saving for 20, 30, 40 years in a forced savings plan like a 401k may be their biggest source of wealth when they go to retire. So that's one of the big components of income strategies. Look at a 401k or retirement plan, which is a big source of income. Then we look at other things. Do you have rental property? Do you have any after-tax accounts? Have you built any wealth that's outside of your 401k? And many clients do. Then we look at what we call guaranteed buckets, Social Security.
Okay.
I mean, everybody wants to understand Social Security, and Dave and I will talk about this later, but one of the things we offer is a free Social Security analysis because there's so many. Social Security is like a maze, right?
Sure.
You look at it, it's like full retirement age is 66 and 7 months. It's like, where did they come up with 7 months, right? So we want to look at all those things. We look at Social Security. We look at if you have any annuity contracts. That's a guaranteed source of income.
Pensions.
Pensions.
Yeah.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that later, but pensions are a little more rare than when my mom and dad were in their careers now because it's expensive to fund those pensions. But yes, pensions. So you look at pensions, 401ks, annuities, guaranteed buckets, and after-tax buckets. We put that all in a very organized format and show them how that income can get them to the other side. So it's one of our strategies.
I love that.
And that
Dave?
gets blended in with your full plan.
Okay.
So when you're, and having an income plan doesn't start from day one and end. It's a continuing process.
Okay.
Your income coordinated with your financial retirement plan, your new goals, because we all know income needs change from year to year. You might be entering a different stage in your life and going into the long-term care issues, nursing homes, assisted living.
That's right.
That's extremely expensive. That can just crumble somebody's financial plan. So planning for that's very important, is including that in your income analysis.
Right, you kind of build that around the overall financial
Yeah.
plan, which
Sure.
is important. And it's so easy, you know, Dave and I, we see it all the time, how easy it is for something to disrupt it. You know, that we've talked about beneficiaries, you know.
COVID.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Look at
That's
that
one of the big
interruption.
disruptors we've seen.
You know, millions
Almost
of people,
in our careers.
Sure,
Absolutely,
millions of people
globally.
unemployed, and then you have a case where we talk about this, but remember the case we had where somebody came in, we got the case sort of late, and when we got advice sort of after some of the toughness had happened, but beneficiary changes are a huge thing. You can have this absolute beautiful financial plan where everything's in order, your income sources are in order, your wills are set up, and then we had a situation where a very nice married couple, well, 1 out of 2 people get divorced, it happens, they were divorced, and it was the gentleman forgot to change a beneficiary, and the ex-wife got $500,000. You could, you know, again, we got referred into this case when it was late, and the kids were calling our office.
We didn't know about this policy
Kids were
either.
calling our office, and we're like,
my
Dave, you take that
goodness.
call. That's the kids. I mean, it's a very difficult
Oh, yeah.
conversation
like-
to have.
Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave,
Dave.
take this call. Frank's out. I think Frank's out of the office. But anyway,
You speak no English?
no, we're kind of teasing, but it's tough to be able to explain that, especially when you weren't involved in the planning from the beginning. Sort of came in to rescue. There's not much rescue
No.
when the beneficiary, because another thing too is beneficiaries, they supersede any kind of a will or a trust. So people don't realize that if you have this most intricate estate plan, you could spend $5,000 on these beautiful documents, but beneficiaries supersede legal work. So that's going to be the first order of priority over a trust. So it's interesting to.
Yeah, your trust can give it to everybody you want it to, but your beneficiary goes around it.
Yeah, so those are interesting points and that's part of the thing we do is obviously now if someone were to come in, we study all the beneficiary designations because that can kind of snip at you and it'll bite you if you're not careful. So
Absolutely, Frank. I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think a lot of viewers in the audience are probably wondering, gosh, are mine up to date? Have I
Right.
made
Yeah,
the
that's
right
right.
changes?
Go check 'em out.
Absolutely.
exactly.
Go
Definitely.
check your beneficiaries.
Dave, I want to ask you a question. What is the difference between retiring today versus years ago?
Okay, well, we can all think back at maybe even some of our parents, some of our grandparents, many of our grandparents, if they worked, the pension was the predominant form of retirement income. You really didn't, you knew what you were going to get when you retired. You knew you're getting $3,000 a month. You didn't have to put money in a 401k. You had a pension plan. 401ks came around in the late 70s, about 78. And basically what it did is a pension, the responsibility for managing that is on the company. Well, what they did with the 401k, if they shift the risk over to the employee. So they have to intentionally put money away. And many people say, I don't want to put money away. I want to live better right now instead of thinking about the future. Many people live in the now, not living in the future. So as a result of that, the old days, you had no choice. You were going to get a pension no matter what. You didn't have to make that decision. You didn't have to choose your investment choices within your plan. You didn't really need the advisor to say, you got a pension. You need an advisor now. If you really have a complicated plan, your advisor will help you with your 401k. But you have to intentionally say, I'm going to put away this much money, I got a plan to put away this much money, and I got to govern the way the investments are managed.
And to add to that, what Dave said, what's happened really is that the risk now has been shifted to the actual employee, right? When you have a pension, you're guaranteed that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month, whatever it is that you've accumulated. But all of a sudden now, because of the risk, the employers were like, okay, let me figure this out here. It's going to cost us, how many billions of dollars if you're at a large corporation to fund all these pensions. How about maybe we shift the risk to the employee and let them put money in a vehicle
we'll
like
give
a
them a little
401k.
match. We'll give them a little match.
Give them some match, and that takes all that risk off the table.
Okay, all right.
There's a few people that still get the pension, but it's very few. The firemen,
rare.
maybe.
Okay.
Government employees
it's a
sometimes
few.
get a pension.
Teachers, they're
NBA
changing.
player, if they played long enough, they get a pension.
That's right.
But there's not too many of those
Okay.
that we deal with. So.
Well, this is the perfect time for us to go ahead and reopen up the phone lines to the viewers at home. Do you gentlemen agree?
Absolutely.
To the
Yes.
viewers at home, the phone lines are once again now open. That number to call is 877-740-6553. You've worked your entire lives to get to the retirement years. You deserve to have a plan designed around what your goals are, your plans are, your dreams are. These gentlemen are offering you the opportunity to do just that. Please call in during today's show. That number is 877-740-6553. We have to take a very short commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to have so much more, so please stay tuned.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
And welcome back to Financially Speaking with SFM. My name is Cynthia DeFazio. I'm joined today by Frank Lavalio and David Allen. They're the co-founders of Security Financial Management. Frank, let me ask you a question. Who benefits the most from taking advantage of the complimentary consultation, if you will?
Okay, sure. So those of you that have invested $500,000 or more in investable assets would be a good target for people that would really benefit from our services and from our planning. And we really look at, we mentioned it earlier in the show, really 4 or 5 different facets of your financial plan. The key is it's a complimentary financial analysis if you call during the show. And we're going to look at, I'm going to give you a few of the facets because I can give you all 5, but Dave would be thinking it's his turn to talk and he gets mad at me. So I'm only going to.
Something I was going to say anyway.
That's right. So I'll tell you 2 of the pieces. One of the things is, we mentioned earlier, is a risk assessment. A lot of people don't realize the risk that they're taking, whether they're taking too much risk or maybe they're wanting more growth and they're not taking enough risk. So we'll look at that and say, okay, let's look at each one of your investments. We're going to study those investments one by one and say, okay, here's the risk that you're taking. And you know, with the great technology that's available to all of us, we have these really cool scoring systems where we can look at these technology pieces that we have and score someone on 1 to 100, 100 being you're very, very risk oriented, and 1 being, you know, where's the nearest mattress I can hide my money over? I'm terrified to do anything. And most people obviously fall somewhere in between, but that'll be one of the things we do. And then one of the other things we'll do is we'll look at how much you're paying. And we talked about that earlier, but it's important because what we find when people come in for that analysis, a lot of them will say, Frank, Dave, or Mike, or whoever's on our team that we're working with, I have no idea what I'm actually paying for these services. It's not very transparent to me. Doesn't mean that's wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of good advisors out there, but it's good to know what you're paying.
Absolutely.
And so that's one of the things we make very transparent and tell you exactly what your costs are. So that's 2 of the pieces, and you can get into some of the other ones later.
Yeah.
Please, absolutely. Dave, let me ask you, the recent changes to the IRA and retirement plans, can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Probably the most obvious change was the required minimum distribution was changed from age 70 and a half. What a required minimum distribution is, for many people know, but some don't, is when you have saved in an IRA or a 401k or what they call a qualified plan, it's all been pre-tax and all been growing tax-free, tax-deferred, and at a certain point, Uncle Sam says, time for us to get paid and time for some taxation to happen on that. So it used to be up until last year, at age 70 and a half. Why the half? We always make fun of that extra half.
That's like the 60-year full retirement age is, 66 and 7 months. It's like, where did that 7 months come from?
Somebody was
What
having
happened?
fun back there and says, you know what, 70 and a half.
And they're laughing at all of us going, 66 and 7 months.
And because everybody's at 70 and a half going, no. Okay, 70 and a half on that day.
Exactly.
Well, they changed that to 72.
Okay.
So
Much easier.
you gave a little bit more time, and that all happened during the COVID period of time to make that change, a part of the CARES Act, right, Frank?
Yeah, part of the CARES
Yeah.
Act. Yeah.
Okay.
And then another major change that happened was if you were, let's say you were my daughter, and
Oh, I'm not sure about that, Dave.
Okay,
I think she's younger than you.
okay,
Wait.
say you're my granddaughter, okay,
Way too kind, Frank. Way too
and I
kind.
had you as a beneficiary in my IRA. Okay, now you inherit. I pass away, you inherit it. You didn't have to pay tax on it, and you got to at all at one time. So let's say it was $100,000. You could stretch that $100,000 in a certain payment, like taking a required minimum distribution.
Okay.
You'd have to do the same thing as a 70-and-a-half-year-old or 72 would do, is taking an annual distribution. They want to get a little bit, but they're not going to make you pay it all out. Well, prior to the CARES Act, you could go to your life expectancy. Well, they changed it to 10 years. So they dropped it to, you have 10 years to pull that money out. So if you got $100,000 from me, that $100,000, you don't even have to touch it for 10 years. But it all has to be out by 10 years, and by that point, you'd have to pay all the taxes due within a 10-year period of time.
You know, and to add to that, you know, in the old days, they used to call it that stretch IRA,
Stretch.
where you could stretch the actual payments out over the younger person's lifetime. So if I were to pass away and I was leaving a beneficiary IRA to my children between 25 and 35 years old today, their mortality, of course, is much longer than
that's
someone
gone
that's
now.
that went away. So that's gone. So no more stretch. 10-year absolute mandatory, and you can pull it out like in the 10th year, right? You don't have to wait and do it
Oh, no.
every year.
No, you can pull it out day one or all the way at year 10.
That's right.
Okay.
As long as it's out by 10.
The old days,
Okay.
prior to that, you had to take an amount every single year.
Right.
But now you don't have to. You can take it at your leisure, and it's not subject to the 10% penalty.
Okay.
So if you're under 59 and a half, on a regular IRA, you're subject to a 10% penalty. But on your inherited IRA, there is no 10% penalty. So you can
Pretty
pull it
neat.
anytime you want to.
And again,
That is
just because
really
we're
neat.
getting in the weeds together, I am too. If you come in for analysis, we're going to kind of dissect
Yep.
those kind of.
Yep.
We'll banter back and forth because we've been doing it for almost 40 years.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
interrupt each other
Yeah.
pretty well.
That's because
We're good at that.
my skin's nicer, so
Teamwork.
he gets mad at me
It's
because
because it's Italian, right?
anyway.
The two of you, I just love our shows together. We only have about a minute and a half left of the show for this time again this week. Would you like to say the final thing that we're going to talk about,
Sure.
Frank, to the viewers?
Dave,
at
is that
home?
okay if I say final thing?
Is that okay?
Go ahead,
It's
Frank.
happening anyway. So what we offer is a complimentary financial plan for those of you that call during the show, and it's multifaceted. I mentioned risk. We look at income, retirement planning, and also I want to mention we'll look at tax efficiency too. For a lot of people, they want to make sure that they really understand, is my portfolio tax efficient? Because with all that's going on, and there's a lot of political stuff going on. We gave almost $2 trillion, which a lot of people needed that money. Another $1 trillion over by the end of the year. So I think it's imminent we're going to have inflation. So we'll look at inflation, taxes, risk, retirement, and income planning. So I think it's going to be important to make that call and get on the calendar to come in.
All right, and let's be fair to Dave. Dave, we have about 45 seconds left. Anything that you would like to say to the viewers at home?
Frank said it all. Basically,
You get your shining moment.
I'm
and then
trying
you give
to,
me nothing.
but we have this history of completing each other's sentence because we've known each other for 45 years.
I love that.
So, all we ask is that if you are interested in having a full complimentary financial plan, it's the type of plan that we would prepare for any client. It's unbiased, and we're going to look at every aspect of your financial life, and also to see if we're a match. Because we do business only with nice people.
Perfect. Gentlemen,
that's
thank you
number
so
one
much for
requirement.
another amazing show. To the viewers at home, thank you for spending time with us again this week. Thank you for watching. 877-740-6553 is the number. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you back next week.